The UFC plays hardball. They push on every leverage point they have, and they have a tremendous amount of them. But this time, Francis had the opportunity to press the biggest leverage point that he possibly could have had, and it had nothing to do with kissing the UFC ring. It had to do with setting up a better option out there, so the UFC was forced into doing the thing that you wanted them to do. All right, another day, another Francis video. This time, we are going to talk about Ariel Helwani, who put up a video about 15 hours ago. And he talked extensively about the Francis situation, and he said something at the beginning. I haven't even finished it, but he said something at the beginning, or it's not even really the beginning, but he said something that was just overtly incorrect. It's just wrong. It's not correct. And I need to correct the record here, because there are things that need to be understood here that are not up for debate at this point, because they have already played out, and I'm going to correct exactly what Ariel said. So that's what we're going to do here. And again, everyone is talking about this situation, and I realized I actually commented this on the video. It's like the comments literally like this big, and I realized I was like, okay, I don't think I've done a very good job of actually I've talked so much about this. I haven't done a good job of putting this thought down to where everybody can go, okay, I understand how Francis dropped the ball here, because he did. Overtly. I'll even tell you why he did the things that he did, and I'll tell you why he was wrong. Okay. So anyway, before we get into it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. I appreciate you guys doing that. I grow every day, and that's because you guys are amazing viewers, and you're joining the hottest MMA community in the world. Anyway, all right, so let's start by the way, comment on this video. I genuinely want to know what you think, and please, if you don't mind, liking the video. I'll tell you what, the second that you hear something that you think is a strong point that you hadn't thought of yourself, stick a like on it. If you're stingy with your likes, or you can just like it now. All right, let's watch this thing. Boom.
There's a few things to say. First of all, this rush. I think what is happening here now with Francis Ngannou is a fascinating look into how people feel about themselves and how people feel about others. And what I mean about that, by that is, very few people in life have the guts and courage to take the road less traveled. If there was anyone in the world of MMA that was going to be comfortable taking that road less traveled, it's the guy who grew up with nothing, who worked in sand dunes, who was homeless, who had to swim in the ocean and escape and be locked up and live in a garage. It was this guy. It was Francis Ngannou. I don't know if a lot of people can wrap their head around that. And so to them, they're like, you walked away from the UFC, you walked away from this, you walked away from that, you walked away from, like, what are you doing? And there's this rush to say, you fumbled the bag, you messed up. When in reality, all they're doing is projecting their own feelings and own insecurities on this guy who is daring to take the road less traveled. That's what's happening here. And so I don't know if I've ever seen this kind of story play out like this, where people are rushing to say someone failed, someone lost, someone screwed up before the story has even played out. If at the end of all of this, we find out that he's making considerably less and his career has gone down the toilet, we could put that verdict out. And by the way, I'll be the first to sit here and say that. But the story hasn't even played out yet. We don't know how much he's making. We don't know who he's fighting. We don't know where he's fighting, how he's fighting, on what platform. We don't know anything. All we know are a few promoters have come out and said, we're out of the running. Now, they have said that. We never really got his side of the story, where he's telling us, like, I took them out of the running, right? What about that? And what I love about the Chatri thing, and I had a nice chat.
Okay, so that's the gist. Okay, so that's the gist that we want to respond to here today, which is this. Okay, the idea that this story has not played out yet is not correct. We know that Bellator's out. We know that ONE FC is out. Okay, he's going to PFL. Okay, he's going to PFL, or at the very least, that is the position that we're going to operate from here. And you know what else? It doesn't even matter. It's irrelevant where he goes when it comes to MMA for me to point out why Ariel is wrong in saying that this has not played out and that he didn't fumble the bag, because he absolutely did. There is no question about that. Absolutely, 100%, he fumbled the bag. Does that mean there's never going to be a bag in the future that he could potentially go after? No, of course not. but he fumbled this bag, and it's his decisions that led to that. Here is exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Now, why was Francis so anxious to entertain free agency? Okay? It's for boxing, right? He wanted to box. He wanted to go. That was his dream. He wanted to box. He doesn't like how, that's one side. He also doesn't like how restrictive the UFC contracts are. He doesn't like extensions. He wants them to do fighter health care. He wants to do, all these things he doesn't like about the contracts. He's offered a tremendous amount of money. I just saw Eric Nixick commented on this. Eric is obviously his coach, Extreme Couture. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Eric. And he said that there's a lot of misinformation going around because he wasn't just offered $8 million to fight. He was offered $8 million to fight John Jones. And then if he lost, he had no protection. Now, of course, that's the way it works for all the champions. So that is certainly a relevant point to consider when you're thinking through what Francis, has done here and the decisions that he's made. But the thing is, that doesn't matter either, because he still fumbled the bag. He fumbled the bag based on decisions he made, and I'll tell you exactly why, okay? So you don't like the restrictive nature of the contracts that you were offered, or the contract you were offered. Understood. Okay. And so in MMA, what's your other option, right? That's the whole point of UFC in general, is UFC has a monopoly on being able to pay guys a lot of money because they're the only organization that consistently sells big pay-per-views. And they did that building slow. I'm going to quote Chael. Okay. He pointed that out to me the other day, where he's like, there's only one way to become successful in the pay-per-view business, which is by building slowly. Now, the only other way that I know of is, you could be a Jake Paul or like a KSI, Logan Paul, but that's not what we're talking about, because that has nothing to do with Francis Ngannou. So when you're looking at, you don't like the restricted nature of the UFC, it's like, okay, well, I don't like a lot of things in my life, but they're kind of non-negotiable, right? Okay, so what's your other option? Like, what's your other option? If some other MMA organization is going to pay you equivalent money, and they were going to take off those restraints, they were going to take off the restrictions, they were going to allow you to box, etc., fine. But here's the thing, right? You have to also consider, you know what? Let me go back to this. Here is where he actually fumbled the bag, okay? He fumbled the bag because what the real reason that he was looking at free agency with wide eyes is because he was going to go box against Tyson Fury. Okay? He was going to go make $35, $40, $50 million for whatever. On the low side, $20 million for a Tyson Fury fight. Okay? That's what he was doing. He was in the ring with Tyson Fury after his fight at Wembley Stadium, and they announced they're going to fight each other. Remember, they were going to do it in MMA gloves. Okay, like this wasn't fairy dust. They were on their way to booking that fight. Okay, and whether they were going to book it or not, this is the main point that I want to make about Francis's negotiations, both with the UFC and the decisions that he made that led to this. Okay, so Markel, his manager, is spearheading the Tyson Fury stuff. Okay, that is why he's in the ring at Wembley Stadium. That's why all of this stuff happened behind the scenes, where they're trying to set up this Tyson Fury fight. That's why. Do you think that Tyson Fury would just randomly call a guy into the ring and be like, "Do you guys want to see me fight this man?" You think that like he just on a whim did that? You think that there's not things happening behind the scenes to set that up? You know what I mean? I don't know of anything firsthand. I don't know. Like, I would assume that, I don't know of anything firsthand that might have been violating contracts, whatever. But bottom line is this. Okay, you guys understand how the game works. You really think that just came out of nowhere? He happens to be at the Tyson Fury fight. He just happens to get into the ring, and they happen to announce this thing together. Okay, that was a year ago. 1 year ago, Francis is in the ring with Tyson Fury, announcing a fight that they're going to do together. And now we're talking about him signing with PFL and not having the Tyson Fury fight. Tyson Fury is fighting two different people. He chose two different people, never even considered Francis at this point. And now, he's going into PFL, and who's he going to fight? That's the other thing. We're going to get into that too. So why did that happen? Why did he lose the Tyson Fury fight? Okay. This is his mistake right here. Okay. He left his management. The manager, Markel, who had been putting all of the things together on the Tyson Fury front. Everything having to do with Tyson Fury is being done by Markel, okay? Now, obviously, the UFC doesn't like Markel. They don't like doing business with him. They don't like interacting with him. It is what it is. I have no insight into what their interactions have been like. I have no idea where that, I mean, well, I kind of do, but like, you know, I'm not here to judge anyone's opinions or any other thing, right? But the UFC does not like dealing with Markel, and so as they are trying to negotiate with Francis, Markel's not talking to UFC. Okay, so now I'm going to speculate just a little bit. Okay, because when Francis left Markel and was like, nope, you know, you're going off on your own. I'm not going with you. You know, I'm not going with you. I'm gonna run it myself. Right now, I don't know how many of you guys know this. Tim from Paradigm, who manages Izzy, Leon Edwards, Yuri Prohaska. I'm forgetting someone else really big. Izzy, Leon, Yuri Prohaska. Okay, so he was with Paradigm, right? And Tim went off on his own. Did those guys stay at Paradigm? No, they went with Tim because Tim's their manager, and the manager is the one who's actually responsible for doing all the things behind the scene. That's why they're the manager. Like Markel's at CAA, right? Now CAA, big organization, okay? Now that is certainly a good indicator that the person is competent, that they got a job there, right? If they work for CAA, they obviously know they're obviously a high value person, or else they couldn't have gotten that job. But once they're in the door, the person who is actually out working on your behalf, making all the phone calls, building all the relationships, making the PowerPoints, presenting them, finding investors, all of these things, this is your manager. CAA has nothing to do with it. CAA is an organization that has shared resources. And what that means is it strengthens your manager and strengthens you in terms of your ability to defend against litigation, things like that. Okay, you get shared legal resources. You also have a team of other agents that you can lean on who can make phone calls for you, etc. But primarily, the person doing all the work is your manager. Okay, so when Markel goes off on his own and Francis is like, "I'm not going with you," it's because I would. This is the only part of this that is speculation, but I'm going to base my opinion on Francis's own words, which were the reason he didn't go with Markel is because at some point you need to kiss the ring. And he's talking about the UFC. So his reason for not going with Markel is because Markel was not talking to UFC. And he wasn't. Markel was not talking to UFC. UFC was not talking to Markel. Markel's not talking to UFC. Now, Francis was not doing the process any favors because he was continually going to dinners with Hunter Campbell. So you have the manager over here, and I'll explain exactly why this is very notable, okay? Because there's a reason why Markel's not talking to the UFC. And dude, look, I am a huge Francis Ngannou fan. This is the only toy I own as an adult, okay? Or the only action figure is my Francis doll. So I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm certainly not attacking the UFC. I'm certainly not attacking Francis. I'm telling you how it is. And so Francis looks at the situation and he's like, well, this guy's not even talking to the UFC, right? He's not even talking to them. And Markel is like, why would I talk to them? And he's correct, okay? Because here is the best way that Markel can negotiate against the UFC. This is just bottom line, period. If we're talking about leverage and we're talking about negotiations, this is the best way for him to negotiate against UFC, is to not talk to them and to go set up a Tyson Fury fight. You force their hand. The UFC plays hardball. They push on every leverage point they have, and they have a tremendous amount of them. But this time, Francis had the opportunity to press the biggest leverage point that he possibly could have had, and it had nothing to do with kissing the UFC ring. It had to do with setting up a better option out there, so the UFC was forced into doing the thing that you wanted them to do. You wanted to sign with UFC, and you wanted to do the Tyson Fury fight. You really think that they were going to do that because you went to fucking dinner with them? And they started telling, oh, yeah, we'll work it out, Francis. Give me a break, dude. They're not going to fucking do that. They were never going to fucking do that. Of course they weren't going to do that. This is war. This shit is fucking war. You're not their friend. They're not your fucking friend. If you died in a car accident tomorrow, they would go to the funeral out of respect and they would fucking forget about you. They're not your friends. They're your employer. They are a business. And this is just what it is. You need to start, think about it this way. Everybody's nice to each other because, yeah, you like them personally, right? Like, you like them personally. You like Dana. You like Hunter. You like any of these guys. But we're talking about fucking business. And the same way that I say, don't ever let your emotions get in the way of you making a decision that has to do with money. Okay? That goes both ways. I'm not just talking about don't get mad and fuck up a decision. I'm talking about don't let them lull you to sleep because you like them. This part is fucking war. Okay? They're not going to do you any favors. They don't want to do the Tyson Fury fight. Why would they want to do the Tyson Fury fight? In what, like, why would they do that? Okay, because you're going to make $40 million? Good. They're not your friends. They don't care. What is in it for them? What is the outcome for them, for the UFC? The outcome for the UFC is, well, why'd you do that for Francis? Why'd you do that for Francis? You know, like, well, now I want to do that. Every single champion is going to want to go do a boxing match and try to make as much money as possible. And they'll very quickly realize the only reason that Francis is able to do that is because Francis got to the last fight on his contract. He was going to be a free agent. So now I need to fight my contract out and go blah, blah, blah. Okay, like, that's the actual landscape. They don't want to do it. Not to mention, they think that Tyson's going to beat the fucking brakes off you. What does that do to the UFC brand? I mean, I realize Francis Ngannou came over here and he wanted to be the boxing champion. Great. No one cares what you want, dude. No one's ever cared what you want. No one cares. And I'm not educating Francis on this, but no one cares. Okay? So if you want that thing, good. But you need to think strategically about how you're going to make that thing happen. Okay? And relying on the UFC just to do the right thing because you're going to dinner with them, all you're doing is undermining your team's ability to negotiate. That's it. What are you going to those dinners for? Why would you go to those dinners? What are you doing? The reason why your manager's not talking to them is because you are going to dinner with them. Why would they talk to him? They could just go to dinner with you and undermine the manager. Okay, the correct play here was to let Markel build the Tyson Fury option so that the UFC was forced to negotiate against the Tyson Fury fight. Okay? That's the correct play. Bottom line, if you wanted to push leverage on the UFC, that was your leverage. The Tyson Fury fight. So the only consideration that you should have had when you were considering whether to go with Markel or not go with Markel or whatever should have been, how does this affect the Tyson Fury fight? You know, like, have I had any conversations with these guys myself? Do I know any of the investors? Do I have any relationships over there? No. So what am I doing? Okay. The only thing that should have been on his decision tree is how do I get this Tyson Fury fight booked and solid so that the UFC's decision then becomes one of two things. They can either co-promote and look like they had a hand in it, or have a UFC champion leave the organization and go make $100 million without them, and then have every single other champion now not asking the UFC to go and negotiate for them and co-promote a fight that they can handle because they have them under contract. They're going to all be looking to get into free agency and leave the UFC. So you'd have forced the UFC's hand if you would have stayed the course on the Tyson Fury fight. And so if someone's going to tell me that the correct play to get the best opportunity to fight Tyson Fury was to fire your manager who had been the person who was driving that thing the entire time, then you're a moron. Of course he fumbled the bag. He completely fucked this up. He couldn't have done it any worse. The outcome is no Tyson Fury fight, no Deontay Wilder fight, no boxing whatsoever, siding with PFL. He didn't fumble the fucking bag. What are you talking about? He couldn't have fucking fumbled the bag any worse. You couldn't have scripted a fucking worse outcome than this. Honestly. Oh, the first champion for the UFC gets to be a free agent. And what's the outcome? No boxing match. He gets to go be in the fucking PFL. Who's he going to fight, dude? Who is he going to fight in the UFC? Who's he going to fight in PFL? Seriously, we're going to get a fucking Francis Ngannou versus Greg Hardy fight. They're going to be like, Greg Hardy. It's like, yeah, he's a big name, big dude. You know, he's a striker. It's like, did he just get starched in BKFC? Like, he washed out of the UFC, went to BKFC, and got knocked out in BKFC. Now he's going to fight Francis Ngannou in PFL? Oh, yeah, dude, $84? I'll shell that out for sure. 84, yeah, I'll pay for that. I mean, I will, but I'm a sick, demented bastard. I'll pay for whatever Francis does. But, dude, I mean, like, does anybody, like, this has played out. This has played out, okay? If anybody was like, oh, so you're going to leave the UFC and go to PFL and there's no boxing in it, would anybody have been like, yeah, dude, that sounds like a good idea? They'd be like, what the reason UFC has the ability to negotiate the way they do is because there's no other options. I mean, it's nice. Like, I really wish there was an organization that would pay a lot of money and would give me the freedom to do this, that, and the other, and would give me a board seat and give me whatever. It's like, well, fucking A, dude. I wish my wife was down to let me fuck all of her friends, but that's just not the world that we live in. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just have to kind of like accept the reality of the world that you live in and get yours. I want the UFC to do fighter healthcare. All right, so they're gonna restructure every single contract that they do. They're going to turn all of the employees from fucking independent contractors into W-2 employees, and they're gonna just redo their entire business so that they can retain Francis. Why? What leverage do you have? If you don't have the Tyson Fury fight, you have no leverage. You're not Conor McGregor. Okay? No one is. But you're certainly not. It would be like, it's negotiating from a position of hoping that or wishing that the world was the way that you wished that it was is not a winning strategy. The winning strategy, as I said, was to focus exclusively on getting that Tyson Fury fight booked, to get to your free agency and announce the fight, or well, I don't know, I have to put more thought to that. But the bottom line is you get the Tyson Fury fight locked up, dude. Get it locked down to where it's right there. And the second you're a free agent, the fucking second you're a free agent, you're allowed to announce it. And then with no team, you don't even realize that the day you become a free agent, you need to do a fucking press conference. And you need to announce what you're doing. But you had no team because you didn't value what your team was doing for some reason, and so you did nothing. Like he didn't. Like, there's no press. They did nothing. Like, no press conference. Nothing set up. I'm not like the old. Like if this sounds like I'm being hard on Francis, it's for one reason. It's for the hubris thinking he could do this on his own, which is so ludicrous. It's like, dude, this is big boy shit. This is gamesmanship at the top level. This is elite human chess. You are a fighter. I'm not saying you're not smart. I have said a million times, I think Francis is one of those guys who will sit in meetings, pretend to be dumb, listen, let them underestimate him, and he's retaining information. Good. Okay? The people that you're up against, okay, have been doing what I just described for 35 fucking years. And they also are on the other side of the fence with the P&Ls and the balance sheets. They've seen every single combat sports promotion try and fail. They've seen everything. You are not up to the task to go head to head with these guys. And if you didn't realize that you were in that serious of a war, then there you go. Bag fumbled. Hubris, thinking you could do it yourself. Like, just even a press conference. Like, this is where I'm going with this, with the press conference. Okay, so I'm going into free agency. Obviously, I need to do a press conference. Okay, set up the press conference. Go ahead, like, set up the press conference. Get all the promotional stuff. Set up, call all the journalists. Book a location. Set up a press conference. Oh, you don't know how? Of course you don't know how. That's why people have fucking managers. I don't know how to do it. I know how to delegate. I know what needs to happen. And, well, I don't need to know how to delegate. If I'm in your position, I have a manager. Like, how could anyone have actually thought that all there is to management is just going and sitting down and asking people for money, okay? The reason why guys like Sean O'Malley can manage themselves is because Sean O'Malley has absolutely no intentions of leaving the UFC ever. If your goal is to stay in UFC permanently, no matter what, then of course, just manage yourself. For sure. And no, you're going to be a company man. You're going to do whatever they ask. Like, that's a different walk. That's a different path, okay? There's nothing wrong with that path at all. Nothing, okay? The path of, I will do whatever the UFC asks me, and I will be the best partner to them that I possibly can, and they will reward me with more money than I would have had any other way. That is a way to the largest bag with the UFC for sure. That's one of the ways to do it. And so O'Malley doesn't have a manager, and that's why. He has a manager for the other stuff that he does, but that's fine. You were going into unrestricted free agency. Do you understand how different those two things are? You could not. I mean, like you're comparing like I'm gonna canoe across this like little river to like I'm gonna take a fucking battleship, a nuclear submarine across the fucking Atlantic Ocean. It's like they're non-comparable. So, yeah, this has played out, and he completely fucked this up. I want him to win. I want him to get a Tyson Fury fight. I want all the best things for him. But, I mean, how about the other night when Pavlovich starches Curtis Blades? Francis doesn't even tweet anything? Like, doesn't even, like, nothing? Like, no statement like, oh, hey, that's cute. Always remember who the UFC... Oh, my God, I can't believe I almost signed off before I said this. Okay. So he doesn't even tweet, always remember who the actual UFC champion is, right? So that doesn't happen because that's something a manager will remind you to do if you're not good at that stuff. Some people are good at that, other people are not. Some people have someone managing their social media. Whoever manages Conor McGregor's social media is exceptional. Every time that there was a UFC fight on, Conor would say something that was going to get headlines. Do you think that's by accident? You think that he just tripped over and just like accidentally tweeted something out after every single fight that was really kind of like, you know, drumming up the waters where people will talk about it? That's expert management of his brand. He has a team for that, although he is extraordinarily talented in that regard also. Here's the biggest thing about why you needed to tweet about that, though, is you needed to remind everyone that you are the actual UFC champion, okay? Because the UFC champion has value. I assume you still want to box, dude, unless you did all this for nothing, okay? Why would Tyson Fury take a boxing match with a dude who is in the PFL unless you are constantly reminding everyone that you're the actual UFC champion, okay? If you're not going back to UFC, like this is my entire point. The bag is gone. It's fumbled, okay? It's fumbled. The whole thing was to get it when you could have. Now, could he get a boxing match? Sure. Maybe. But here's the thing, dude. Tyson Fury is fighting Ruiz in July. Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua are fighting in December. Okay? If Francis is where he is right now from a brand perspective, where is he going to be in a year when he could theoretically get this, do this fight? What's going to happen between now and then to build hype? Okay? He's going to sign with PFL. He's going to go fight, Greg Hardy or Fabricio Verdum, who's 47 years old. I mean, maybe he goes out there and he starches Fabricio in, 10 seconds. And people are like, man, he really is vicious. I really want to see that Tyson Fury fight. Or your chance to do that has passed. Now, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to fight boxing contenders, okay? So while I'm giving advice on the career path, let me say this. Your path now to a boxing match, if you have not booked one in very short order over the next few months or 6 months, whatever, you're going to have to actually box contenders, okay? Let me tell you what the problem with that is. They can put a can in front of you that you can beat, okay? They can put a can in front of you that you can beat in boxing. But boxing fans are very savvy about boxing. They don't know dick about MMA if they're only boxing people, but in boxing, they know what they're looking at. You can't fake it. If you are not crisp, if you look like, if you look slow or you look whatever, if you look sloppy, they're going to be like, this guy can't box Tyson Fury. And if you think that doesn't matter, when it comes to Tyson Fury booking a fight, like if you look super, super sloppy, you're not going to be able to sell that fight. Now, I don't know. Hopefully that's not the case. But your brand value was everything when you were the UFC champion. That's without... Anyway, I'm just rambling now. All right. I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Peace.